الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يذهب الصالحون الأول فالأول أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. Respected brothers, scholars, sisters listening, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This gathering, which is focusing on the remembrance and memorial of two of the greatest sheikhs that have set foot on UK soil, in order to appreciate their magnificence, their greatness. Quite a lot has been said, which needs to be understood and processed. Before I begin to commence my talk, and I would like to focus on the history of Islam in the UK, and the impact. Qutub al-Aqtab as the Sheikh Maulana Muhammad Zakaria, Nawar Allahu marqadahu, marrad Allahu madja'ahu, wa a'ala Allahu maratibahu, and his star pupil, Hazrat Shaykh al-Hadith, Sayyidi wa Murabbi, Maulana Muhammad Yusuf Mutala, نور الله مرقده برد الله مجعه وعال الله مراتبه, have had on UK. The children that we see in the masjid today, the hats that we so willingly wear on our heads, the niqabs that we see on our sisters' faces, the engagement with deen within the UK is closely attached to two individuals in the history of UK. This is Hafiz Patel Sahab, who worked for most of his life, in fact, his full life devoted to the work of Jama'ah and Tabligh. And Hazrat Aqdas Maulana, who established what Hazrat Dr. Sahab was explaining, knowledge and spirituality. Who was Hazrat Shaykh Nawwarallahu Marqadahu? We need to understand. Hazrat himself, Hazrat Aqdas Maulana Yusuf Sahab Rahmatullah Alayh, has himself, on one occasion, he shared an incident, a dream, that somebody saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam before Hazrat Shaykh Nawwarallahu Marqadahu had arrived on UK soil. Somebody saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in their dreams, and how fortunate is the one, may Allah Rabbul Alamin bless us with such a sleep and a dream where we see Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And in his dream, when he is in the audience of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there is noise coming from above the roof of the building where he was in his dream. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stopped the conversation and inquired, do you know what this noise is for? He says, Ya Rasulullah, I'm unaware. He says, this noise is in the heavens, in Malay A'la, what we call, is in the heavens, because there is great emotion and jubilation amongst the angels for the trip that Hazrat Shaykh Nawrallahu Marqadah is going to make to UK. This is who Hazrat Shaykh was. Dreams, Hazrat Maulana, my class colleague, Hazrat Maulana Riyaz Sahab, and he's a product of Hazrat Maulana Yusuf Sahab's efforts. Dreams, in light of hadith, are referred to as 146th of prophethood, Nubuwwah. Because before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam received revelation for 6 months, he had a period of visions, dreams, where the vision or the dream was absolutely crystal clear. And events used to occur exactly according to the vision and dream. So this is a whole science in Islam. Interpretation of dreams. You may have heard of Allama Ibn Sirin, who was referred to as one of the imams of science of interpretation. In fact, it was through my Shaykh, Hazrat Maulana Yusuf Mutala Sahab, that I came to learn about this science and about Allama Ibn Sirin. So this individual sees Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dream and says, the Malay A'la, I'm full of commotion because of Hazrat Shaykh's trip to the UK. So the connection of these great individuals is with Allah Rabbul Alameen. And as has been indicated, when Allah loves you, the whole world falls in love with you. Sufyan ibn Uyayna, you've just heard that Tanzilu wa fi riwayatin tatanazzalu. Ar-Rahmatu in the Zikri Salihin. This statement is attributed to Sufyan ibn Uyayna, although many awliya have said it. That the mercy descends at the time when the elders, the Mashaikh, the awliya, the righteous people are being talked about. And the reason and explanation given for this is because their mention leads us to thinking about Allah and our own existence and our own relationship with our Creator. The life and times of Hazrat Maulana Yusuf Mutala Sahab was only a preparation for his final moment. He lived to meet his Creator. From the moment he met Hazrat Shaykh, came into the UK. Let me share with you, and I was fortunate to spend time with Hazrat Shaykh, Maulana Mahmood Yusuf Mutala Sahab, and share with you some episodes of his life. Hazrat Maulana Yusuf Sahab was Fanafi Shaykh. And for us students in Darul Uloom Bury, in the early days of 1980s, this was something absolutely that wasn't seen before. For somebody to have such love, such connection, such attachment, such respect and reverence, for somebody miles away, yet appeared so close, was an eye-opener. Hazrat, in his daily routine, his time management, and let me explain his 24-hour time management. When he woke up, after Fajr, there would be Dars al-Hadith. He would teach the Bukhari Sharif class. And in those days, when I was a student in Bury, in the 80s, with Hazrat Maulana here, he used to teach Tirmizi Sharif. And after an hour or maybe 1.5 hours, and in the later stages when we were finalizing or finishing the books, it would maybe become 2 hours. After a short breakfast, maybe a nap, and then back to teaching. And his whole day would be until 4 o'clock teaching and frequenting between the office in order to cater for what is happening in the Darul Ulum, administrating the tasks. No minute was wasted. What we learned there was time management. And this is a discipline that we learn from our elders. And in those days, it was not only teaching, but writing and dealing with the people who come to you for guidance or counseling, or writing the amulets or the ta'weez, or responding to letters, dealing with guests. This was time management, which we learned from our elders. This was a skill. Today, people pay millions in industry how to learn to time manage. Millions. This is a skill that was taught just by observing our elders. Hakimul Islam, Hazrat Maulana Shaf Ali Thani Sahib Rahmatullah Ali wrote over nearly 1,300 books in his life. They did not live for over 100 odd years. In a short span, they managed their time in a way that Allah Rabbul Alameen blessed their time, and so much work was taken from them. So Hazrat, after 4 o'clock, he would normally either rest for a while, have some tea, and then go for a walk. And Hazrat was a very fit and healthy individual. I remember the Hazrat, who had a V-shaped body, used to do press-ups on 2 thumbs. Try this. He was a fit, healthy individual who looked after himself. And I had many occasions where I was eating with Hazrat from the same plate. And I hardly ever saw him eat more than 1 roti. And he would say, this has been my diet for over 20 years. For such a person to survive on scanty provision, a very paltry diet, small amount of diet, yet do so much work. And at 5:30 to 6 o'clock in those days was zikr majlis. Hazrat Dr. Sahib mentioned that there is ta'aleem, there is tadrees, but there is tazkiyah. That knowledge is of no use if the heart is not pure, if the heart is not connected with Allah. This is what we call as the science of tasawwuf. In English, it's translated as Sufism. But the ISM in English means an idea. This is not an idea. This is the heart of Islam. एक उर्दू का शायर अर्ज करता है, उर्दू की आप इजाजत है तो मैं एक शायरी पेश कर दूं। डॉक्टर कहाँ के मौलाना साहब, में इजाजत हो तो कौन बैठा है? डॉक्टर साहब इजाजत हो तो मैं एक शेर पेश कर दूं। आपसे भी तो इजाजत है ना, आप तो होस्ट हैं। एक शायर अर्ज करता है कि मैं किसी से ये क्यों पूछूं तसव्वुफ किसे कहते हैं। मैं किसी से ये क्यों पूछूं तसव्वुफ किसे कहते हैं। खुद अपने दिल को देखा और समझा इसको कहते हैं। न सूरत का तसन्नो न रस्मों का तकल्लुफ, खुद ही खुदा से झुको बस यही है तसव्वुफ। अब इन्हीं अल्फाज से ज़हन खुफ्ता को जगाना है। खुफ्ता स्लीपिंग डोमेंट। अब इन्हीं अल्फाज से ज़हन खुफ्ता को जगाना है। शरीयत सर झुकाना है, तरीकत दिल लगाना है। So Hazrat taught us this. Knowledge is not sufficient. It's not enough. We can learn to behave like machines and do all our devotional activities, ibadah, on time, every day, punctually, regularly. But where is the heart in all of this? We need to put our heart into this and then abide by it, act upon it, and this is what Hazrat taught us. And 5:30 to 6 o'clock was the zikr majlis. And Hazrat's way of zikr will be available on YouTube to listen to. It was filled with emotion. The way he took the name of Allah. And there was a small group of students who sat day in, day out behind Hazrat, learned how to do the zikr from Hazrat, who took the oath of allegiance back from Hazrat and learned how to do zikr. And Hazrat taught them that the real, not just fanah fi shaykh, but you move a step forward, fanah fi rasool. And all his life, Hazrat's every action was sunnah upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sunnah upon Rasulullah. Follow the sunnah of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. On one occasion, on a Saturday afternoon, I followed Hazrat into the old library. And Hazrat was not just a Sufi sheikh. Hazrat was also a very, very learned alim. And his love for books, after watching him and seeing and spending time in his companionship, that's where I learned the love of books. On one occasion, on a Saturday afternoon, the time on a summer day between Zohar and Asr was quite long. So I followed him into the library in order to sit by him. So he said, go to your room and have some rest this Saturday afternoon and come back later on. So I returned just before Asr time to remind him that Asr time is here. So I saw Hazrat in the same position with the same book. But the book he was reading, which was quite thick, he had nearly completed it. So I inquired, Hazrat, have you not moved from here? He said, no, I've been sat here since you went. He said, but look, I have nearly finished this book. And I said, Hazrat, why didn't you move, take some fresh air or something? He says, I was reading one hadith after another hadith, and the love for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that what else happened in his life? What else happened in his life? I was turning the pages over. Only the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was inspiring me to learn more about his life. This was Hazrat love for books. So the zikrullah was from 5:30 to 6 o'clock. Then we used to revise for the next day 2 hours. And in that time, Hazrat would look at the books. Any guest would come and sit by him. Any hospitality that he had to offer, he offered. Let me share with you an incident about his hospitality. On one occasion, Hazrat Abdas Maulana Asad Madni Sahib Rahmatullah. And I learned at Hazrat's house, he had absolute love for 2 clans and families. This was the Madani family and this was the Qasmi family. Absolute love from amongst our elders. Hazrat Abdas Maulana Asad Madni Sahib Rahmatullah alayh came. And Hazrat Aqdas Maulana Asad Madni Sahib would go for a bit of a walk after Fajr Salah. And when he came back, he entered the room and Hazrat had laid out his hospitality for the breakfast. And Maulana Asad Madni Sahib said, Maulana Yusuf, where am I going to sit? There is, everywhere I look, there is a dish here. Where do I start and where do I finish? Such was Hazrat's golden heart and warm personality and his absolute generosity for a lot of people. Everybody who came. And then after 8 o'clock, Hazrat would go home to eat and he would return just half an hour before Isha. And there we would listen in Majlis about books about the elders. And they were mainly all books that were written either by or about Qutb al-Aqtab as a Shaykh Nawwarallahu Markadahu. On many occasions, these sinful eyes have seen my Hazrat crying, sobbing like a child in the remembrance of his Shaykh. For an individual who could not speak Urdu at the time, just watching all of this, seeing a grown man cry, for somebody who passed away was an absolute, it's an eye-opener and an education. For Hazrat Dr. Sahib was saying, the link with your Shaykh propels you forward and gives you things from your Shaykh that you could not acquire from years of work. And then Hazrat would retire for the night and wake up with the Hajj. This was his time management. And in between all of this, any guests who came, and so many people, so was a very young man. But many elders came to Hazrat for consultation, for mashwara. Many masjids came with their plans for his opinion. What should they do? What should they not do? Many people would ring, as Hazrat Maulana said, for dreams. Let me share with you a few dreams. On one occasion, a student of Hazrat saw that he is teaching Jalalain Sharif to Hazrat himself. And the tutor, who is the student, Hazrat's student, is saying that he's teaching Jalalain Sharif is a Quranic commentary. Globally, it's accepted. It is taught in the latter years of an alim course. You don't become an alim without studying Jalalain Sharif. It has 2 authors, that's Jalaluddin Suyuti and Jalaluddin Mahalli, that's why it's referred to as Jalalain. So this student is teaching Hazrat Maulana Yusuf Sahib in his dream, Jalalain Sharif. And he is standing, as I am stood, and he is teaching. And at the end of the lesson, the student is relaying this dream to Hazrat and he says, Hazrat, you asked me so many questions about what I had taught about this Quranic tafsir. And each question I was able to very calmly, with great aplomb and calmness, able to respond. So this student is inquiring about this interpretation of this dream and is saying, Hazrat, please forgive me for my wretched behavior that I am teaching you when I should be learning from you. Straight away, Hazrat responded by saying, your child is benefiting from your knowledge. How is the connection? The connection is that the child, the student who is seeing the dream, his son is called Yusuf. And he is teaching in the dream, Hazrat das Maulana Yusuf's son. And in reality, he is also teaching his son who is called Yusuf. Hazrat didn't know whether the son's called Yusuf or whether he's teaching him or not teaching him. Allahu Akbar. Another student asked Hazrat, that Hazrat, I saw in my dream that I am leading a group of individuals and we are smoking, inhaling and exhaling, smoking cigarettes in our dream. And I am leader of the group. Hazrat interpreted, blessed be that dream, you are extremely fortunate. The interpretation of that dream is, you are doing zikr. When you're inhaling, i.e. when you're putting the love of Allah inside your heart, when you're exhaling, you are eliminating, getting rid of all love for anything else but Allah. Who would give these types of interpretations? This is a whole science within Islam, the science of dreams. So Hazrat thus spent his time in this 24-hour schedule. And Hazrat was fanah fi Sheikh. But alongside this, I said, let me explain to you the history of Islam. Islam enters Europe when the Banu Umayyah come to Europe. And this is in the year 711. And there comes a time when the Banu Umayyah are ruling in Spain, what we call Spain nowadays, Spain, Portugal, West Europe, until 1492. And from 756 to 1056, this is the golden period of Muslims in Spain. A lot of the knowledge was used to form the Renaissance within Europe. 1492, the Muslims and the Jewish community were expelled, went back to North Africa. We have a bit of a gap. We see the first masjid in Woking in UK in about 1889. And between all of this, colonization of the Muslim world is taking place. So in the 20th century, for Islam to take root, we have a change in policy, immigration policy, where a lot of the elders who are sat here, or even their forefathers, will have come to the UK. And we begin to have the first maktabs, the first masjid, the first madrasa, people looking for people to pray Jummah Salat with or Eid Salat with. In those times where it was a struggle to run a masjid, to run a maktab, one person stands up and says he's going to build a Darul Ulum. Because Qutub al-Aqtab as a Shaykh Nawwarallahu Marqadahu had instructed him to build so. And in that instruction, Hazrat spent his life. He did not just build one Darul Ulum. And he had many struggles. Let me share with you an incident of one of his struggles. On one occasion in the early days, Hazrat had a friend in Bolton. He's my local area. I meet him very regularly. And I confirm this story with him. And this friend of Hazrat, that in those early days, the Hazrat spent the night at my house, and the next morning they were going to go to Glasgow because there was a need for money for the Darul Ulum. They had non-interest-based installment payments had to be made, and there was no money. They stayed the night at my house, and the plan was to go next day by train to Glasgow. So at night I saw, he says, there was two of us in the house, myself and my wife, and we had one son then. And the young son used to sleep in our own room. And Hazrat slept downstairs on the sofa. So at night I was awoken by this loud noise. It was like the noise of a baby crying. So I was wondering, who is this? My child is next to me, he's asleep. My wife is next to me, she is asleep. Where is this noise coming from? So I went downstairs and I got to the base of the stairs and I noticed this crying getting louder and louder. So I peeped into the room and I saw Hazrat, a young Hazrat, in sajda crying his eyes out. Crying his eyes out. And then the next day, when I went to pick them up, when they returned from on their train from Glasgow, the first thing he said to me, in total happiness, he says, I've got the money. And this is what we saw whenever there was an issue, a difficulty. Hazrat never became anxious, never became worried. He was never grief-stricken. The first point of call was always turning to Allah, and that's what he taught us. To turn towards Allah. And not only did Allah Rabbul Alameen, for 50 odd years. 50 odd years. He was born in 1946. Died in 2019. For 50 years on UK soil, he established more than a dozen institutes. Alongside Bury, there is Kidderminster, Madinatul Ulum. There is Blackburn, Markazul Ulum. There is Jamia in Bradford. There are primary schools. There are other academies. And of course, the students then went on to build their own institutions. So nearly 12, 13 institutes in 50 odd years. Alongside this, for 40 years, he taught hadith. 40 years. As it was an expert on a hadith, and when you learn hadith of him, you just wanted to be absolutely remain there. Because such was the love pouring out for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Alongside 40 years of teaching hadith and 12 dozen or so madrasas being established, Hazrat wrote 27 books. And he delivered hundreds and thousands of lectures. And he responded to people's requests for dream interpretations. And how many janazah funerals he has led, how many nikah he has led, how many times he went to Bukhari Sharif completion or Hifz completion. He found time for every single individual. When we look at the life of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on the one hand, he had time for everybody. And when we look at the life of Hazrat Maulana Yusuf Sahib, he had time for everybody. In such a small amount of time, there was so much blessing in his life. If we look at our own lives, how much time we waste, particularly on the smartphone or the WhatsApp messages. How much time we waste. If we apply ourselves in preparation to meet our Creator, this is the example. So not only was Hazrat Fanah fi Sheikh, he also brought back to life religion in this country. Hadith says, Inna Allah yab'asu ala ra'si kulli mi'atin sanat man yujaddidu hazati. Allah Rabbul Alamin sends at the end of a century somebody who reignites the religion, gives life. And in the UK, this is what's happened. If you look today across the UK, over the last 40, 50 years, you will barely find a masjid where there is not a student of Hazrat or some direct or indirect connection with Bury. This is his connection. And there was a time when Hazrat wrote to Hazrat Shaykh Nawwarallahu Marqadahu, maybe this is not for me. Maybe this is beyond me, to establish a Darul Ulum in the UK. And Hazrat Shaykh even gave some monies towards the whole project. And over time, Hazrat took strength from this. And this was an individual, when Hazrat got married, and needed to do walima. He barely had any monies. He sent £5 through the old postal order system. Some of you will remember the postal orders that were sent. Through the old postal order system, to Saharanpur, to Hazrat Sheikh, to do my walima there. That individual who barely has £5 for walima, this is the work that Allah Rabbul Alameen has taken from him. So the greater good of society, an individual will always look to benefit. There were many occasions, especially during the late 80s when we had the Salman Rushdie incident, the people used to come for guidance. And remember the Bradford Council of Mosques brothers coming. When we had the issues around sorting out the moon, all the ulama, the senior ulama used to be coming. I only know because I used to be making the tea for all these ulama. And I had the opportunity, unfortunately enough, to meet all these individuals. But Hazrat gave everybody their time. Not only did he teach hadith, he also taught every class so he could keep an eye on everybody. And as Hazrat has said, every student thought, he is my Hazrat. And every student will have a story about Hazrat. And every student's concern was Hazrat's concern. The concern for the Ummah. And these are the individuals who are teaching in madrasas today. Those who sat by him and learned directly from him. And Hazrat's even in the holidays, the book on Hazrat's maktubat, that his correspondences with Hazrat Shaykh Nawwarallahu Barakatuh. He gave that order and arrangement in the holiday time. He would not waste his holiday time. When Hazrat Shaykh Nawwarallahu Barakatuh, who passed away in the early 80s, Hazrat Aqdas Mufti Yusuf Ludhianvi Sahab, Rahmatullahi alayhi, was invited to Darul Berry for a few weeks. He stayed there. He worked on Hazrat Shaykh or unke Khulafa-i Kiram. This is a book about Hazrat Shaykh and biographies of all the Khulafa of Hazrat, to give arrangement so that the teachings of Hazrat Shaykh Nawwarallahu Barakatuh and his legacy would carry on. So not only was he Fanafi Shaykh, not only was he able to produce this army of students to do some great work across UK. Those you see in front line, and you may have invited here, people like Hazrat Mufti Shabbir Sahab, people like Hazrat Maulana Bilal Sahab, people like my teachers, Maulana Abdul Rahim Sahab, who will be next inshallah. Hazrat Sheikh Riyadul Haq Sahab, Mufti Abdul Rahman Mangera Sahab, your Imam, mashallah, Hazrat Maulana Riyaz Sahab. All these individuals, they are all his students. This is a great evidence of Hazrat's sincerity in doing the work of deen. So he gave life into the work of deen again. And not only this, he introduced tasawwuf. That we are not just machines stood in front of Allah doing our Fajr, Zohar, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, or fasting or doing Hajj. This is too ritualistic. But to give that ibadah some meaning, to give it love and connect with Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, these are the lessons of his life. And there are many episodes that we can share of Hazrat's life and how he taught his students. Not only this, but Hazrat united something very special. That was take from the elders and pass it on, and also what are the contemporary needs here in the UK. So many students will have gone on for further study at universities, have become teachers, have become doctors, have become lecturers, have engaged in all kinds of different sciences, not just Islamic studies. And they were all coming back and forth for guidance from Hazrat. And all were engaging with wider society. And Hazrat filled them with the notion that we are here and we must give benefit to mankind. But follow the sunnah of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Hazrat produced the mud. Have you seen the mud that Hazrat has produced? If you type in Google Mud, M-U-D-D, you will find a picture of it. Hazrat produced it and distributed across the UK. And one of the du'as of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Allahumma barik lana fi thamarina, wa fi madinatina, wa fi sa'ina, wa fi muddina. To Allah, give blessing for us, our fruits. So the fruits that grew in Arabia, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was making a dua for it. From this we can learn that whatever is the produce of this country or wherever we are, it becomes sunnah to dua for us. Allahumma barik lana fi madinatina. Oh Allah, bless our city. Which one of us, when we raise our hands, says, Allah, bless the place, the city we live in, Leeds, or the UK. And it is going through some challenging times at the moment. Allahumma barik lana fi sa'ina. Sa' and mud were two measures to measure either the density and weight of something or the volume of something. So give barakah and blessing in our sa', in our mud. And mud was approximately 775 milliliters. A vessel which would you have 775 milliliters. So if you think of a normal bottle of water, either you will have a 50 ml one or 100 ml one, or if a larger one, or if you think of a can of Coke, it has about 330 odd milliliters. So just over 2 odd cans. And with this amount of water, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to do wudu. And Prophet Hazrat Maulana Yusuf Sahib, he developed this mud. And this mud, to keep it in front of you, do 5 times a day when you're doing wudu to remind you of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One of the first environmental concerns that we have in the life of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the amount of water he used. Think about how much water we are wasting when we are doing wudu. By the time we're washing our face, how much water has been running down into the drain or the tap is running. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam used a mud. It was like a pot. And this pot had capacity for 775 milliliters of water. And in the olden days, in the 80s, many occasions I saw Hazrat, he would take water out from the old geysers that we have, and he would fill the pot with water, and with a cup he would then do wudu. And I would say, Hazrat, let me pour over you. He would say, Aap masle nahi jante. Don't you know the rulings? So he would, in order not to waste water, every single step of his life. And many occasions people in Ramadan would travel with Hazrat to Makkah and Madinah to Munawwara, to the Haramain. Even there the teaching was not to waste time. On every step, read Durud Sharif. Every step, read Astaghfirullah and Durud Sharif. Keep your mouth clean because you're going in front of the Rawdah. How dare you with a bad mouth say Durud Sharif. The adab that was passed on, engaging with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. These are just episodes from the life of Hazrat Maulana Yusuf Mutala Sahib, who is dearly missed, particularly by his students. And as Hazrat said, that if you are engaged with Hazrat, it is important to find a mentor in your life. And every discipline, even if you take law today, you will have somebody who will be your senior, who you're learning the trade of. So the mentor's job is to purify this internally so it connects with your Creator. And this is the connection that comes through tasawwuf. The connection can come through devotional activities, the tahajjud, chast, awwabin, ishraq. recitations of the Quran. But the connection can be fast-tracked through a sheikh. And there is a whole history of 1400 years of all these Sufi tracks that lead to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Sufi orders. Whether it's the Chishtiya, whether it's the Naqshbandiyya, whether it's the Shaziliyya. These Sufi orders which were dominant in the old Al-Hind, the old India before its partition, which is how Islam comes. This was brought over here too, to give life and light and illumination to the teachings of Islam. So today, when we see these jabbas, when we see these niqabs, and we see these hijabs, and we see all this, the zeal for knowledge, this is not by accident. There is a whole history here. And Britain will always remember, for many years to come, the life and times of Hafiz Patel Sahib, the work of Tabligh and Dawah, and the life of times of Hazrat Maulana Yusuf Mutala Sahib, with illumination and spirituality and knowledge. May Allah Rabbul Alameen grant us the ability to accept the truth as it is and pursue it and follow it with great zeal and conviction. May Allah Rabbul Alameen grant us the opportunity to acknowledge what is lies, deceit, roguishness, and grant us all the ability to stay away from it. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.